friend, welcome. If we haven't met yet, I'm Jen. I'm a part-time online clothing reseller, which means I go to thrift stores, I buy used clothes, I list them on eBay and Poshmark and Depop, and hopefully sell them for a profit. Today, I wanted to share with you all of my May numbers. I usually do this at the beginning of the month. I'm a little behind, but here we are. And I just wanted to share with you all of my profit and down to what I make per hour. So this is something that I like to do on a regular basis because I think it's important to know all the things. I think sometimes we hear like, oh, I'm a $100,000 reseller, or I made $1 million reselling, or I make $2,000 a week reselling. But what does that actually mean? And so for me, I do this part-time. It is about 25 hours a week, and that varies from week to week, but I will talk about that a little bit toward the end. I live in a small Midwest town. It's a small city, large town, I don't know. I do have a fair amount of low-priced thrift stores near me, and so my average cost of goods is quite low. But I mostly sell items between $15 and $25. And they're items that don't have crazy high sell-through rates. So most of the items that I sell are clothing. I do sell also some books, some home goods, some sporting goods. I don't know what the sporting goods was about. Most of my clothing items were dresses, women's tops, skirts, men's button-ups, and bras. And my tops brands this month in May of 2025 were Vintage, Carhartt, J. Jill, Torrid, and Cacique, which kind of correlates with the bras because Cacique is a intimates line from Lane Bryant. It's a plus size brand. So usually I sell on eBay. I use Vendoo to cross list, and so I start all of my listings in Vendoo, and I put all my information in from when I get the item at the thrift store. And so maybe I have a Banana Republic wool sweater, size small, red, okay? And so I would put that information into Vendoo. I would say which thrift store I bought it at in the, Vendoo has labels, I believe it's what they're called. And then say I bought it for $3 at my favorite thrift store. I would make sure that all that information is in there. And then I take pictures of those items. I have this big thing that's rolled up around a 2x4. It's actually a tablecloth that I bought at a thrift store, and I use that. I use a hanger and a hook, and I hang up my items and I take pictures. And then I go in and I list through Vendoo. I list onto eBay. Then a day later, I will cross list onto Poshmark, and then sometime down the road, I will cross list to Depop. I am slowly adding things to Depop. So in May, 61% of my items sold on eBay. On Poshmark, I sold 28% of the items, and then 11% of my sales came from Depop. I usually like to say in the beginning, and I forgot, but I'm going to say now, this is extra income for our family. It is important income for our family, but I'm not paying our mortgage. I'm not, feeding our family with this. My husband does work full time. And so this helps pay for dance classes, violin lessons, soccer fees, just all the extra things that come with having a family. I have 4 children. I homeschool, and so I'm home with them all the time. And this fits very well into my schedule. Okay, so I told you all that. So now you're probably wondering, it's been a minute or a few, how much did you actually make, Jen? Well, my gross sales were $2,759.41. I don't get to keep all of that. There are things that come out of that. And so we'll talk about that in just a minute. I sold 112 items this month. I listed 132, which is actually up from April. I only listed 112 in April. I'm listing more per day, but in May I was less consistent with the listing, and there were a couple different reasons for that. My average sale price is $24.64. That's down a little bit from $25.12 in April. The average sale price does include shipping on eBay and on Depop, so just keep that in mind. All right, so when I have my gross sales amount, I have to then subtract all the fees that I paid, all the shipping that I paid. So I pay for the shipping labels on eBay and on Depop. On Depop, I use Pirate Ship, and on eBay, I just ship through eBay. And so when I subtract that, as well as my cost of goods for each individual item that I sold, my profit is $1,711.70. So that's not bad. For me, it's not great because my goal is $2,000 a month, and I was down in April. I feel like March was okay. I was down in April, down in May, and it continues to be down for me in June. However, I've been in vacation mode for most of June, so that makes sense that it's down. So I have $1,700. Unfortunately, I still don't get to keep all of that money. So there is some other things that I have to pay for. So I mentioned I use Vendu, that's $25 a month subscription. I also use Prime Lister to to share on Poshmark and to send offers on Poshmark. That's $25 a month. I have an eBay store subscription. I think it's the third tier. There's like a $5 basic store, and then there's I think it's 1,000 items is $25, and then the next one is $60. I could go down, but unfortunately the way I did it, I like locked myself into a year, so I have to pay the $60 until my time is up, unfortunately. So I always get asked, or almost always get asked, how many items I have listed, and currently it's right about 1,000 items. And that's, I could probably put about 200 more in here. So, but that makes it real squished if I get too many. So those are the subscriptions that I have to pay for. I also have to pay for inventory. I sold those things, but I also have to buy new things to list and resell. So in May, I spent a total of $274.91. And that's pretty low for me. I had a lot from April, if I remember correctly. Actually, I think it was still from March. I did go to the bins one time in May, towards the end of May, and I think the other were just kind of short little trips to my favorite thrift stores here in my area. The other thing I pay for is my daughter. One of my oldest daughters, actually my oldest daughter is 17, and she takes pictures for me. She takes pictures of all my pants, shorts, and skirts, anything that can go on a little clippy hanger. And I pay her $1 per photograph, and she ends up doing maybe 7 to 10, depending on the day and just how quickly she wants to do it. But she'll do that about 7 to 10 per hour. And so I pay her just depending on how many she does. She's pretty busy. And so in May, she only took 26 photos for me. It's already way over that for June. She's been a super big helper for me in June. All right. Circling back to inventory. I do count my inventory cost twice, only for this video, just because for me to like extract the number of the cost of goods number from my original net number and my profit number would take too long, and I just don't want to do that. So yes, I counted my cost of goods in the original profit number, and then I'm counting the cost of goods for how much I purchased as well. I don't report that twice to the IRS when I do my taxes. I only report that once. I just do it this way in the video because it's the easiest way for me to do it. I know that's confusing. I'm so sorry, but I'm just trying to be honest. So after I did all my numbers for this video, I did remember that I'm pretty sure I paid a babysitter one time while I was thrifting. Oftentimes my teenagers will watch my littler kids, and they get compensated in various ways for that. But sometimes I will have to pay an actual babysitter, a different teenager, or, you know, just someone else within our community to help out while I'm thrifting. And so I do think that that's important to note, because that is another expense. And, you know, thankfully for me, I'm able to compensate my teenagers in other ways, but I know that that's not necessarily the case for everyone. I could potentially, you know, take my children with me when I go thrifting, but I don't love that. So I choose to pay babysitter most of the time if my teenagers aren't available. The other thing is, I do think I bought something supply-wise. So, but I didn't go in and look. I'm so sorry. I think it was labels for my label maker. But any shipping supplies that I have to buy, so poly mailers, boxes, tape, any of that are other expenses that need to be accounted for. Okay, so after I take out all my expenses, minus the couple that I forgot, my profit is now down to $1,300.79. So $1,300.79. If I divide that out by 4 weeks, I know, Mom, there's 4.3 weeks in a month, but I just divided it by 4. My profit per week is $302.51. And then if I divide that again by 25 hours, I make $12 an hour. It's usually a little higher than that. And I don't know exactly how many hours I go based on a 25-hour work week, but especially in May, I know the first few weeks in May, I worked very little at all. And in the last 2 weeks of May, I worked a lot because I was preparing for the trips that I knew I was taking in the beginning of June. So on average, I ship 1 hour a week. That includes this video. Not this video, but I do a shipping video, a ship with me video. And so that includes the video. Some days it's 20 minutes, some days it's, you know, an hour and a half, but I think on average it's about an hour per day. I do not work on Sundays. I give myself a break. And so that's 6 hours a week. I, on average, spend about an hour listing. I delist and relist. I used to have a specific number, and now because of the new things in Poshmark, I just list whatever delist and relist whatever 60 days or older on Poshmark. Today, that was 10 items. Sometimes it's 0, sometimes it's 20. It just kind of depends. And it's not always a round number like that. I am currently listing 10 new items to eBay every day. I cross-list those items to Poshmark the following day, and then right now, I'll be honest with you, I'm only listing 1 item per day on Depop just to kind of keep it going. I needed something to give, and for the moment, it's that. I take about 6 hours per week to take photographs. I do that in 3-hour chunks, and I batch photograph. My daughter does all my pants and stuff, and I do everything else. And so I will do those in batches, usually in 3-hour chunks. And I usually do that about twice a week. Like I said, I didn't take hardly any photos in the first couple weeks, but I took a ton in the second half of the month. And so therefore, I think it just kind of all evens out in the end. On average, I source for about 6 hours a week. I usually go on Friday mornings or Tuesday nights, or I take a big chunk, like I did in May, take a big chunk of a day and go to Indianapolis. That was an experience in May, and I actually did a video on that. So you can go back and watch it if you want. So I made $12 an hour this month. It was an even number, which is kind of strange. Maybe I just wrote it down evenly, but $12 an hour is not bad. I was talking to a friend of mine who works in like childcare, and she said on average a childcare worker in our area makes from $10 to $12 an hour. And I was talking to a friend of mine who works part-time doing kind of some admin stuff, and she makes $13 an hour. And I know $12 is more than I was making as an assistant manager at a local coffee shop, which is what I did prior to doing this. I mentioned the daycare work because my like before I had kids, I was a preschool teacher. And so that's kind of what I know. So I'm satisfied with that. Another thing to note, I think is really important, is that this is all taxable income. And so that I will pay taxes on top of that $12 an hour, which all of the professions that I mentioned as well, they will also pay taxes on theirs as well. So, okay. I think that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you have questions at all, please leave them in the comments. I will do my best to answer those as well as I can. And, leave an emoji, a little celebratory emoji if you made it to the end. I really appreciate being able to share this with you and just being with you along in this journey of reselling. So I'll see you soon.